The planet of Sarathia was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Twin suns burned brightly in the sky, casting strange, shifting shadows over a metallic city that seemed alive. Towers stretched so high that their tops disappeared into clouds of shimmering energy. The streets below were filled with creatures whose shapes and colors humans could hardly describe. Every step they took seemed purposeful, every movement precise. The Sarathians were a species of perfection, of intelligence, of speed, and they were dangerous. Marco, the human scout, hovered above the city in his small shuttle, studying the patterns below. He had trained for this moment for years, yet his heart raced as he looked down, not from fear but from anticipation. He knew that the mission ahead could change everything for Earth. Every planet that humans had tried to approach before had been either conquered or avoided. But Sarathia, it was untouchable, or so they believed. He adjusted the controls, checking the stealth shields that would make him invisible to radar and surveillance. The shuttle hummed softly, almost like it was alive, responding to his touch. Marco could see the patrolling drones moving in perfect synchronization, their lights scanning for any anomaly. Every human in history who had attempted infiltration here had failed, or disappeared. And yet, here he was, breathing steadily, heart firm, ready to step into the impossible. The shuttle's landing gear touched the rooftop of a lower tower, silent and careful. Marco stepped out, feeling the cool wind rush past him. The city smelled of strange metals, ozone, and something faintly organic like flowers blooming in alien soil. He crouched low, moving with deliberate steps, studying the guards below. They were humanoid in shape but taller, with long limbs and skin that shimmered like liquid silver. Their eyes glowed faintly, scanning constantly. Humans could not hope to match their speed or reflexes. Most would panic at this sight. But Marco did not panic. He had a different skill, one that no technology could replace. Humans had instinct, adaptability, and a stubborn heart. He remembered the words of his instructor: when they predict your move, do the unexpected. When they wait for your weakness, show your strength in another way. He breathed in, letting the cool air fill his lungs. Every nerve in his body was alert but calm. Every step he took was measured. He moved from rooftop to rooftop, avoiding direct paths and bright lights. The city's glow made shadows everywhere, and Marco used them like old friends, slipping between them, melting into darkness. From above, it seemed almost impossible that anyone could be invisible in such a perfect city. Yet he moved like a ghost. He watched a patrol pass by a corner he had just left. The guards' glowing eyes scanned the streets, but none of them looked up. None of them noticed him. Marco's mind wandered briefly to Earth, to the small blue planet waiting for him to succeed. His younger sister's face appeared in his mind, smiling, trusting him to do this mission. That thought made his steps steadier. Fear was useless and arrogance would be fatal. All that mattered was focus, observation, and action. As he approached the first checkpoint, he saw the drones hovering in arcs, scanning every rooftop, every window, every street. Their hum was steady, mechanical, unrelenting. A misstep here would alert the entire city. Marco crouched low behind a metal vent, watching the drone's path. He waited. He calculated. And then, with a single silent leap, he moved forward, landing softly behind the last drone just as it passed. A quiet thrill ran through him, not triumph, but acknowledgement that he had passed the first test. This was only the beginning. Sarathia had layers, defenses, and intelligence far beyond anything humans had faced. But for the first time, he felt something that no alien had ever accounted for: a human heart that refused to quit. Marco paused atop the rooftop, looking down at the city that believed it was untouchable. He allowed himself a small smile. They don't know I'm here. They can't see me, and I am just getting started. With that, he leaped toward the next tower, moving deeper into the alien city. Every step was a risk. Every breath could be the last if he made a mistake. But humans were made for impossible challenges. And Marco intended to prove it. Marco landed softly on the next rooftop, the wind from the twin suns brushing against his face. From here, he could see the sprawling heart of Sarathia, the streets, the towers, the constant movement of guards and drones. Everything was precise, perfect, and deadly. He crouched low, letting his eyes adjust to the flickering light from the city below. Every step now was more dangerous than the last, and yet he felt alive in a way he had never known. The first real challenge awaited him at the command tower, a structure taller and more fortified than any other. A high-ranking Sarathian official had just stepped out of the central hall, flanked by armed guards and hovering drones. The man's long silver robes shimmered as he walked, and his glowing eyes swept over the crowd with calculated scrutiny. Any human attempting to approach him would have been caught instantly. Most humans would have frozen, panic replacing courage. But Marco felt no fear, only focus. He studied the patrol patterns of the guards, noting their speed, their pauses, and the rhythm of the drones above. Timing was everything. One misstep would trigger alarms that could spread across the city in seconds. Yet, he remembered his training. Observation was more powerful than force. The Sarathians expected their city to be impenetrable, but they had not accounted for human adaptability. Marco began moving, slow and deliberate. He stayed in the shadows, blending with the crowd of alien pedestrians. His small human frame was barely noticeable among the towering Sarathians. He mirrored their posture, slowed his breathing to match the rhythm of the city, and took every step as if he belonged. A drone passed just a few meters away, its scanning lights sweeping over the rooftops and streets. Marco froze mid-step, his heart pounding, but he held perfectly still. The drone's gaze lingered for a moment, and then it moved on, unaware of the human who had just cheated its sensors. Relief washed over him, but it was brief. He knew the next few steps would be harder. He had to get past the first checkpoint, a narrow bridge leading to the command tower, lined with guards who could detect the faintest anomaly. Marco crouched low, timing his movement with the patrols. He rolled silently over a narrow gap, the wind almost throwing him off balance, and landed softly on the other side. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of success. He was a ghost moving through a city that believed itself untouchable. Suddenly, a small Sarathian child bumped into him, startling him momentarily. The child's eyes were wide, filled with curiosity and fear. Marco instinctively smiled, showing no threat, and spoke a few learned phrases in their language. The child hesitated, then nodded, seemingly satisfied that Marco was harmless. That brief encounter reminded him of one human truth. Courage was not only about stealth or strength, it was also about connection. Even in the deadliest situation, showing care could save lives. As he approached the bridge, he noticed a small gap in the drone's coverage, a rhythm in the guard's patrol that allowed him to move undetected. He timed his steps perfectly, each movement calculated, precise. Every sound of his footstep, every shadow of his body was in harmony with the city around him. When he reached the other side, he allowed himself a brief pause, inhaling the strange, electric air. He had passed the first true test. But Marco knew this was only the beginning. The command tower was just one layer of defenses. Beyond it lay corridors that could read his heartbeat, doors that could detect fear, and algorithms that could predict his every move. Yet he felt ready. For the first time, he understood why humans had survived against odds that seemed impossible. Adaptability, observation, patience, and determination were weapons no alien could predict. Marco moved forward, his gaze fixed on the shining tower ahead. Every step, every breath was a challenge, but he was alive, alert, and unstoppable. The Sarathians believed themselves unbeatable, but humans had a different kind of power, a heart that refused to quit, a mind that adapted, and a will that would push forward no matter the danger. As the first rays of the twin suns reflected off the command tower, Marco whispered to himself, almost like a promise, "I will not fail, not now." Not ever. Marco crept along the narrow side alley of the command tower, the metallic walls reflecting the soft glow of the twin suns. Every corner seemed alive, every shadow a potential threat. His senses were stretched to the limit, every sound amplified, every movement studied. He knew that one wrong step could end the mission, or his life. Yet amid the tension, a small thought crossed his mind. I am not just a soldier, I am human. That thought gave him courage. Suddenly, a soft sound reached his ears, a hurried, nervous step from behind. Marco froze, blending instantly into the shadows. Another human might have panicked, but Marco had learned to move with patience. The sound grew closer and he realized it wasn't a guard. Peeking around the corner, he saw a small Sarathian, a young female, rushing past, her eyes wide with worry. She collided gently with him, almost knocking him off balance. The girl's eyes widened in shock, but she did not scream. Instead, she muttered in rapid Sarathian words, clearly nervous about something. Marco could not understand all of it, but he caught the words intruder and alert. His heart skipped a beat, not from fear, but from the realization that he had been spotted, even if briefly. He quickly raised his hands, showing no threat, and spoke in the few Sarathian phrases he had memorized. "I am not danger. I work here maintenance." The girl hesitated, suspicious, but there was something in his voice, a calm certainty that seemed to reach her. Marco smiled softly, letting her see that he meant no harm. After a tense moment, she nodded and whispered, "Follow me quickly." Without waiting, she led him through a small service corridor that ran along the edge of the tower. The walls hummed with energy, and security sensors blinked rhythmically above their heads. Marco followed, silent, careful, and grateful for this unexpected assistance. As they moved, he noticed the girl's hands trembled slightly, her eyes darting nervously at every patrol. Despite her fear, she continued, guiding him past areas he could not have passed alone. Marco realized that human intuition had found a new ally in an alien heart. He did not need her friendship, but her courage to act, small and quiet as it was, proved that even the smallest being could make a difference in impossible situations. Halfway through the corridor, a security drone hovered directly above. Marco froze, instinct taking over. He crouched low, pressing himself against a service panel while the girl ducked behind a nearby wall. The drone's scanning beam swept past them, missing them by inches. Marco felt the familiar rush of relief mixed with adrenaline. Humans had survived countless dangers on Earth, often against larger and stronger predators. The same adaptability now carried him through alien precision. Once the drone passed, the girl led him to a small maintenance hatch, hidden from standard surveillance. "Go now," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Marco nodded, grateful for her help. "Thank you," he said in his halting Sarathian. She only nodded and turned away, disappearing into the maze of corridors. Marco paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. This encounter was a small miracle, a reminder that even in a world designed to see him fail, connection and trust could carve paths through impossible challenges. Humans had this gift, the ability to adapt, to find allies, to act in ways others could not predict. He pushed himself forward, climbing through the hatch and emerging on another rooftop overlooking the heart of the city. From here, he could see the command tower in all its intimidating glory. Guards and drones moved below, oblivious to the human who had already passed through their most secure areas. A faint smile touched Marco's lips. Humans were underestimated everywhere, and that underestimation was a weapon. Looking down at the bustling city, Marco felt a surge of determination. He had already survived where others would have failed, and he knew the next steps would be even more dangerous. But he also knew this. Courage was not the absence of fear, it was the willingness to act despite it. And humans, he realized, had courage built into their very bones. He paused one last time, letting the wind from the twin suns brush against his face. The mission was far from over, but with every step he felt closer to proving what humans could achieve. And somewhere deep inside, a small spark of hope glimmered. "I am not alone, and I will succeed." Marco climbed onto the roof of a smaller tower, the wind tugging at his suit as he peered toward the command tower. Between him and his goal lay the deadly corridor, a narrow passage suspended over a void of glowing energy grids. Every footstep here could trigger alarms. Every miscalculation could end in instant detection, or death. The Sarathians had built this corridor with the precise knowledge that no intruder could pass without being caught. But Marco had learned one human truth: the impossible existed only until someone dared it. He crouched low, scanning the path ahead. Pressure-sensitive panels were spaced across the floor like invisible mines. Motion detectors glimmered faintly as they scanned for anomalies. Above, hovering drones swept back and forth, their sensors humming with sharp, penetrating precision. Every security system in the corridor worked in perfect harmony. Most humans would freeze in fear at such a challenge. Marco felt the flutter of adrenaline, but he did not freeze. He took a slow, steady breath, letting his heart slow. Calmness was his weapon, precision his shield. He studied the pattern of the sensors, the timing of the drones, the rhythm of the energy pulses. Humans had survived countless threats on Earth, often by reading patterns and adapting in real time. Marco's mind worked quickly, calculating the intervals and sequencing his movements with an almost artistic precision. One misstep would trigger alarms that could cascade through the tower, alerting every guard and drone within miles. Yet he felt no panic, only focus. With careful steps, he placed one foot on the first safe panel. It hummed softly under his weight, and the sound of his heartbeat echoed in his ears. He adjusted his balance, keeping his body light and controlled, moving forward inch by inch. The drones above shifted slightly, their lights scanning areas he had already passed. Marco paused mid-step, crouched so low that his shadow seemed to vanish entirely. One drone passed mere meters above him without a single recognition. He allowed himself a small, silent smile. Humans were underestimated everywhere, and that underestimation worked to his advantage. Midway through the corridor, a sharp vibration beneath his foot startled him. He froze, realizing that a small, hidden sensor had detected pressure just moments ago. Adrenaline surged, but Marco's training took over. He shifted his weight, rolling to the side and landed softly on a secure panel. The drones passed, oblivious. He exhaled slowly, feeling the thrill of survival mingled with the calm pride of precise execution. Halfway across, he noticed a flicker in the wall, a thin, vertical opening just wide enough to allow him to slip closer to the far side undetected. Using his hands to balance, he climbed along the edge, letting the wall bear some of his weight as he avoided the final set of pressure plates. Every movement was calculated, every breath measured. Even the slightest sound could betray him, but his focus never wavered. As he neared the end of the corridor, a sudden mechanical hum warned him of a drone adjusting its path unexpectedly. Marco paused, crouched so low that his form seemed to dissolve into the shadows. The drone hovered above him for a moment, its sensors glowing, then drifted past, continuing its patrol without detecting him. Relief surged through him, not triumphant but steady. He had survived the deadly corridor, a place designed to break even the most prepared intruders. Finally, he stepped onto the last safe panel, the far side of the corridor now beneath his feet. His legs shook slightly from the tension and effort, but his heart burned with the knowledge that he had overcome yet another obstacle the aliens believed invincible. Humans could survive, adapt, and succeed where others failed. Marco looked ahead at the towering entrance of the command tower. The path had been deadly, the risk extreme, yet he had proven that fear alone could not stop a human. Every step of courage, every calculated risk, every moment of focus had carried him through. He straightened his back, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, "Nothing can stop us, not today, not ever." With that, he moved toward the tower's entrance, ready to face the next challenge. The deadly corridor was behind him, but the mission was far from over. And somewhere deep inside, he felt that unstoppable human spark ignite, one that could outsmart, outlast, and outfight even the sharpest eyes in the galaxy. Marco stood at the base of the command tower, staring up at the massive door ahead. This was the impossible room, a place that had never been breached by any intruder, alien or human. The entrance shimmered with energy fields, retinal scanners, and mind-sensitive algorithms. Even the slightest irregularity in a person's thoughts or heartbeat could trigger alarms, summoning every guard in the city. Most would have turned back, defeated before even trying. But Marco didn't hesitate. He took a deep breath, feeling the hum of the energy fields vibrate beneath his skin. His eyes scanned every line of the door, every flicker of the scanning lights. He had studied their patterns for months, memorized their timing, and trained his mind to remain calm under pressure. The impossible room was designed to detect fear and impatience, but humans had a different kind of strength. They could adapt, improvise, and overcome. Marco activated a small device on his wrist, a human-made tool designed to mimic alien neural signals. The device pulsed softly, sending tiny waves into the scanning system. The lights flickered, momentarily confused by the mimicry. Marco moved forward slowly, keeping his heartbeat steady, his breathing shallow. Every step was a negotiation with the security system, every movement a dance with danger. As he reached the first layer of the door, a sudden mental probe tested his thoughts. The impossible room tried to read his intentions, his fears, even his memories. Marco closed his eyes, focusing on a single thought: survival, mission, humanity. He blocked out fear, doubt, and distraction. The sensors hesitated, unable to find the slightest inconsistency. He smiled faintly, realizing that the impossible room had no experience with human determination. Carefully, he pressed the device against the final lock. It pulsed, hummed, and then clicked. The massive door parted silently, revealing a room filled with holographic data pulsating with alien knowledge. Marco's eyes widened. This wasn't just a storage area, it was a vault of secrets, military plans, intelligence reports, and strategies that could threaten Earth. The impossible room had held the galaxy's most sensitive information, but now it belonged to him. Yet even in triumph, Marco remained cautious. The room was alive with security measures that were not visible at first glance. Motion detectors hovered silently, and the energy fields reacted to every shift of air. He moved slowly, studying the patterns of the holographic projections, memorizing their positions. This was more than a mission. It was a test of patience, courage, and ingenuity. As he collected the critical data, a sudden thought struck him. The mission was not only about success but about responsibility. If he failed to escape, the information could be lost, or worse, trigger an alarm that could endanger millions. He worked quickly but carefully, transferring the holograms to a secure human device he had designed for such emergencies. Every pulse of energy, every flicker of the lights, reminded him that perfection was temporary, adaptability was eternal. Finally, the last hologram was secured. Marco stepped back, surveying the impossible room one last time. He had done what no one else could. The room had tested his mind, his body, and his will, yet he had prevailed. Humans were underestimated everywhere, and this was proof. Intelligence, courage, and determination were not measured by size, speed, or technology. They were measured by heart. He paused, letting a moment of quiet pride wash over him. The impossible room had been conquered, but his mission was not yet complete. The path ahead would still test him, still demand every ounce of skill and courage. Yet Marco felt a surge of confidence. He was human, and humans had a power that no alien could ever fully predict. With a final glance at the glowing data around him, he whispered softly to himself, "This is just the beginning. They think they are unbeatable, but they haven't met us." Marco turned toward the exit, ready to face whatever challenges awaited him next. The impossible room had tried to stop him, but humans did not stop. They adapted, they endured, and they triumphed. Marco stepped carefully out of the impossible room, his device securely holding the alien data. The corridors stretched before him, lined with energy barriers and silent sensors. Every sound echoed, every shadow seemed alive. He had survived the impossible room, yet the mission was far from over. The hardest part lay ahead, leaving the tower alive. As he moved forward, a faint noise caught his attention, a quiet, trembling voice. Peering around a corner, he saw the young Sarathian girl who had helped him earlier. She was cornered by two guards, her hands raised in fear. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw him, a silent plea for help shining through them. Marco's first instinct was to continue, to escape quickly and secure the mission for Earth. The data he carried could save millions, and time was precious. Every second wasted could mean disaster. But as he looked into the girl's eyes, he realized something vital. Courage was more than self-preservation. Humans were capable of heroism that went beyond survival. He made a choice. With a deep breath, Marco stepped from his hiding place, moving swiftly but silently. Timing was everything. The first guard turned slightly, sensing something, but Marco's movement was so fluid, so precise, that he reached the girl without alerting the second guard. He grabbed her hand, pulling her behind a shielded pillar. The guard's sensors flickered as they scanned the area. Marco had seconds to act. Using a small device from his belt, he triggered a series of holographic projections, creating multiple illusions of himself moving in different directions. The guards reacted instantly, chasing false images while Marco guided the girl through a narrow service corridor. His heart raced, not with fear, but with determination. As they ran, Marco whispered in his broken Sarathian, "Stay close, trust me." The girl's small hand clutched his tightly, her fear giving way to hope. Every twist of the corridor, every shadow they passed, reminded him that survival was about strategy, courage, and sometimes compassion. Humans were underestimated because they could think differently, act unexpectedly, and show mercy even in deadly situations. Suddenly, a door slid open ahead, revealing a patrol of 4 guards. Marco froze for a heartbeat, calculating. Turning back was impossible. Time slowed as he made a split-second decision. He tossed a small energy pulse to the side, creating a sudden loud distraction. The guards spun toward it, giving him and the girl the opening they needed. They sprinted past, hearts pounding, lungs burning, until the door slid shut behind them. Once they were in a quieter corridor, Marco allowed himself a brief pause. The girl looked at him with wide, grateful eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Marco nodded, smiling faintly. "We survived together," he replied, a simple truth that humans understood deeply. Survival was not only about the mission, it was about the lives worth saving along the way. They continued toward the exit, moving as quickly and silently as possible. Every corridor was a new puzzle, every patrol a challenge to outsmart. Marco's mind worked tirelessly, calculating, adapting, improvising. Yet through it all, he felt a quiet pride swelling in his chest. Humans had a rare gift, the courage to choose what was right even when every instinct screamed self-preservation. Finally, they reached a rooftop near the shuttle landing area. The wind from the twin suns blew against their faces, carrying the metallic scent of the city. Marco glanced at the girl, who nodded in understanding. Then, with one final leap, he guided her onto a hidden maintenance platform that would take her safely away. As she disappeared from view, Marco felt a surge of resolve. He could have left her behind, completed the mission alone, but humans were defined by their choices, and he had made the right one. The mission was still alive, and so was the spark of humanity that burned in him: courage, compassion, and relentless determination. Marco looked out over the city, the impossible room now behind him. He whispered softly to himself, "No one expects us to succeed, but we always do." And with that, he turned toward the final challenge, ready to prove once more that humans could triumph where others failed. Marco sprinted across the rooftop, the twin suns casting long shadows of the towering command center behind him. The shuttle lay waiting on a small landing platform, its stealth shields barely visible under the shimmering light. Every step was tense, every breath calculated, but he felt a surge of triumph coursing through him. He had survived impossible challenges, outsmarted the most advanced security systems in the galaxy, and proven that humans could achieve what no one else had dared. Behind him, the city of Sarathia remained unaware of the intruder who had just outwitted every guard, every drone, and every security system. To them, it was a mystery. A phantom had passed through their perfect defenses, leaving no trace. Marco's heart swelled with pride, but he knew the mission was not yet complete. The data he carried was vital to Earth's survival, and failure now was not an option. As he approached the shuttle, a low alarm began to hum faintly. Someone must have triggered a minor sensor, too subtle for the guards to notice immediately. Marco's pulse quickened, not with fear but with sharp focus. Every human instinct he had honed during the mission surged forward. He ignored the noise, gripping the device containing the alien intelligence tightly, and climbed aboard the shuttle. Inside, he activated the engines. The craft's stealth systems engaged immediately, blending it seamlessly with the city's background energy patterns. The shuttle lifted silently, hovering just above the rooftops. Below, the twin suns reflected off the metallic streets, painting a scene of beauty and danger. Marco exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of exhaustion and exhilaration all at once. He had completed what everyone thought impossible. Humans had triumphed where others had failed. Yet his mind wandered to the young Sarathian girl who had helped him earlier. She had trusted him, acted bravely, and survived because of the choice he had made. Humans were not only cunning or strong, they were compassionate. That compassion, combined with ingenuity, was what allowed them to succeed in ways no one could anticipate. Marco smiled quietly to himself, knowing that his species' greatest power was not in weapons or technology, but in heart. As the shuttle rose higher, leaving the glowing city behind, Marco looked at the data device. It contained secrets that could protect millions, maybe even billions, back on Earth. Every bit of information was critical, but more than that, every step of this mission carried proof of a human truth. Courage, adaptability, and determination could conquer even the most advanced threats. Back on Earth, leaders would study the data, strategists would plan, and soldiers would train. But Marco knew that the real lesson was already proven in the streets and rooftops of Sarathia. Humans could succeed where all predictions failed. It was not arrogance that had brought him here. It was perseverance, focus, and the refusal to be underestimated. He allowed himself one long moment of reflection, the hum of the shuttle's engines filling the silence. From the first rooftop leap to the impossible room, from the deadly corridor to saving the young girl, every step had tested him beyond measure. And yet here he was, intact, triumphant, and alive. Every human who had doubted themselves, every person who had been told the odds were impossible, could now look at this mission as proof. Humans were not weak. Humans were not predictable. Humans were unstoppable. Marco whispered softly, almost to himself, "They didn't see me coming, and I won't stop here." The shuttle disappeared into the sky, leaving Sarathia behind, a city full of secrets now in the hands of a species the galaxy had underestimated. And somewhere deep in the universe, the story of a lone human scout began to spread, not as a warning but as a lesson. When others fail to notice, when others give up, humans rise. Humans endure. Humans win. As Earth drew closer on the shuttle's navigation screen, Marco allowed a faint, satisfied smile to break across his face. Every trial, every danger, every choice had led him here. He had been invisible where no one could hide. He had been unstoppable where no one could match him. And he had proven the greatest truth of all. Humans could succeed, not by chance, but by heart, courage, and sheer, relentless will. Marco leaned back in the shuttle seat, eyes on the approaching planet. Humanity had won this battle, and in that victory, he knew the galaxy would never underestimate them again.